I remember the story of Sir Laurence Olivier, who had given one of the greatest performances of Hamlet that had ever been given in history, someplace in, I think it was at Oxford in England. And they had given him a 20-minute standing ovation, and it was this rousing thing, and he went back to his dressing room, and one of his friends came into the room and said, that was fabulous. There's never been an interpretation of Hamlet like that. And Sir Laurence Olivier said, don't you think I know that? And he was very upset. And his friend said, how could you possibly be upset after that, giving that great performance? And his response was, but I don't know how I did it and if I can ever do it again. And that's almost the inner kind of energy that drives us. When we get inspired, we know there's something else working. We know something else is there with us, supporting us, guiding us, helping us. Somehow we know we're not doing this thing alone, as I know right now as I'm speaking. Many of the examples, the stories, the things that have come out in this live presentation, I had no idea that I would be using or saying when I came up here. And yet, when you get inspired, when you get in spirit, you're not alone. And what we want to learn to do is to have a picturing process in our minds that is consistent with our desire to be inspired as frequently as we possibly can, to have that sense of being in spirit. And meditation allows us to do this. When you are able to be inspired, what you want to then begin to do is to be alert for the first sprouting of seeds of your manifestation. You want to be looking but not demanding. You want to be observing and noticing but not insisting. It's like almost playing this game with your ego. With the ego part of you says, yeah, I want it now. And your higher self says, you just want to be at peace. But look around. And as you see it, you begin to tune into the cues. And these pictures, the reason that this process works is because this divine intelligence that is endless, that is inexhaustible, will cooperate with you when your pictures come from in spirit. It will cooperate with you. It always has. It's what sustains you. It's what allows you to breathe. It's what allows you to think and process and listen. It will cooperate. Being in New York City and doing an interview not too long ago, and it was a radio station that had just changed formats. And they had gone from talk radio, which I had done many interviews at this station over the years, to gospel music. And so everybody that was on the staff at this radio station, some 30 people, were all told the day that I was coming there to do an interview that they had all been let go. And everybody was walking around and they were all depressed and they were all upset. And every time someone would come up to me and say, oh, Wayne, isn't this awful? I've been here for 22 years and I just lost my job. And I would say, congratulations. And they look and say, what's the matter with you? How could you believe in congratulations? I just lost my job. And I said, yes, but within a certain amount of time, probably within a year, you'll be in a place that is much better than where you are now. And it was almost like God was trying to tell you something, but you wouldn't listen. It's time to change. It's time to walk down another street. What is your dream? And you sit down with each one of these people and you ask them, what would you really like to be doing? Rather than working here this particular way. And then most of them said, I'd like to have my own business, or I would like to do some writing over here. I've always had some ideas about writing. One guy said that he wanted to just do an opera. He'd always wanted, and he's been working on an opera like Mr. Holland, remember, in Mr. Holland's Opus. But he could never get himself the courage to do it because he was always going into the radio station every day in New York. And then I saw him about a year and a half after that, and he was getting his opera published, which he couldn't have done if. It's like this intelligence that we think is conspiring against us is something that we have to understand works with us, but you have to have infinite patience and trust.
By some invisible intelligence, some burning desire, something that we call light, something that we call the impersonal part of us that is always directing us, and it's always directing you as well. You're listening to it sometimes Most of the time we ignore it in the name of fitting in or doing when I don't have time, or I'm too old, or I'm too fat, or I'm too skinny, or I'm too white, or I'm too black, or I'm too poor, and endless we go with all of the reasons why we can't fulfill a destiny that we know is ours, that we signed up for, that we're here for in this infinite universe, that who we are is not this physical body that we're in that is here for a moment and gone. Who we are is this infinite intelligence, and we forget that. The same intelligence that created this infinite universe that never ends is you. You manifested in this infinite, divine, organizing intelligence. You're a part of all of it. These kinds of callings, we all have these. We know that we have a purpose. You already know that you have a purpose. You know, you're listening to that all the time. It's there. The idea that you can't do it, or that you shouldn't do it, or that my whole life has been impacted by listening and being willing to understand that. And there's a quote that I talk about at the seminar that'll be a part of this course, and it goes like this. It's from William Blake. He said, "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern," by William Blake. We would begin to see, I don't know if you've ever heard of a group called The Doors, with Jim Morrison, a rock group. They took the name from that essay that Aldous Huxley wrote called The Doors of Perception. There are things that are known, and there are things that are unknown, and in between are the doors. And even Jesus said, "I am the door." That is, the internal I amness within God is the door that you can open and discover so many new things. And another one of the principles that I talk about is this, that a lot of people have difficulty understanding. It says the laws of the material world do not apply in the presence of the God realized. I was on the Tonight Show in Australia a few years back, and the woman asked me the question, "What is your purpose? What are you here for? What do you want to do?" And I said, "I'd like to understand God realization. I'd like to be able to understand and live from that place where God is within me and I know it." The importance of meditation, I can't stress it enough. You have to go to the silence. You have to go to the place within that can't be divided. Think about it. Silence is the only place where you can go that you can't divide it. You cut it up and you still got more silence and more silence. And it is in that silence, in that meditation. And I deliver some really very, very powerful meditations with some readings that when you understand them, you'll understand that the laws of the material world do not apply in the presence of the God realized. Once you're in that state of God realization, you'll understand things like your intuition. That is that inner calling that says, go this way instead of that way. Try this. Don't be afraid of that. Get rid of the fears that are so dominating your life. As Anita talks about fear and what a thing it was that created the cancer in her life, which allowed her to almost come to a place of dying. You'll discover things like synchronicity, that you have a thought and all of a sudden what you place your attention on begins to manifest and arrive into your life. You'll discover that those thoughts are not just things that just are happenstance. There's no happenstance in this entire universe. It's all held together by a divine light. And one of my favorite readings I'd like to share with you is from the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. It said, "It has been clearly stated that life lived by the average individual is hypnotic. That is, the majority of men and women are not living life as it was intended at all. Not 1 in a million feels the freedom to live what he inwardly feels he should live. He has come under the world's opinion of himself, and this opinion is what he obeys rather than the laws of his own being. In this respect, and to this degree, he is living under an hypnotic spell. It's like hypnosis. He lives under the delusion that he is a mere human being living in a merely material world and only hopes to escape it when he dies and goes to what he calls heaven. This is not the determination intended in the plan and purpose of life. Obedience to one's inner nature, the expression of life as he instinctively feels it ought to be expressed, is the very foundation of the life which the masters reveal as the only true mode of living." That is very powerful awareness, that you are not this body that you're in, this body that comes and goes. You are the invisible divine intelligence within, the same intelligence that allows a clay pot to exist. And finally, from the Masters of the Far East, the second volume, the moment you become free from the belief that you are mere human beings, subject to human laws of life and death and the limitations which human beings have imposed, that moment you will see that you are free from all human limitations and may become sons of God, if you will. The moment you realize that you are divine, that you are free from all limitations and possessed of the strength of divinity, and you know that this divinity is the place where being comes most directly in contact with God, man is then beginning to see and know that this divinity is not something to be injected into each other from without. He is beginning to know that it is the very life of each and every person, your essence, the light within you. I have heard nothing but positive, enlightening comments from people who say, it turned my life around. I finally went within and discovered that I am capable of using this divine intelligence that we call light inside of us to create the life that I was destined to live.